Hello guys, welcome to another video of Microsoft Azure. In today's video, we are going to discuss about subnets that is inside virtual network. Okay, we will create the subnet. We'll discuss the types of subnets here in the virtual network. One is the normal subnet and another is the gateway subnet which we can create here. And we'll discuss other things about subnets as well in virtual network and in Azure. Okay, here I am in documentation. You can see the definition of subnets here. Subnets enable you to segment the virtual network into one or more subnetworks and allocate a portion of the virtual network's addresses space to each subnet. If I explain this to you in simple words, this is just the differentiation, you can say, or you can divide the IP addresses which you have allocated to your virtual network in different groups. Suppose you are creating virtual networks and application gateway or load balancers or some databases or something like this, or and container instances and you are using same virtual network to create all those resources, then you might want to differentiate all those resources based on the subnet. Like you might want to create the containers in the container subnet, you might want to create the virtual machines in virtual machine subnet. Like that, you might have different subnet uh, type, or you can say different subnet resource for some particular resource type. So this is the reason we create the subnet, and we can uh, add network security groups and route tables in each subnet, and we can enable or we can allow or deny traffic even on the subnet level using the network security group and route table inside your virtual network. Okay, so this is the main purpose why we create the subnet in Azure or even in any other cloud. Okay, now let me create one subnet first. So to create the subnet, go to your virtual network and click on subnets. Here you will get all the subnets which you might have created. Okay, click on subnet, and here you will have to specify the subnet purpose. Okay, like why we're creating this subnet. This can be for Azure Basin, Azure firewall management, or if you want to do it for virtual network gateway, that is called gateway subnet. You want to create that, but we'll be creating the default subnets, which which you can basically create for most of your use cases. Suppose if you want to create a subnet to host your virtual machines, you can create one default subnet. You can provide the name. Suppose this subnet I am doing it for ACI, create the Azure container instances. So I'll give name something like this. You can follow the naming conventions, whatever your company follows or whatever is your requirement. Okay, you can add the IPv4 address spaces, and you can allocate the IP address range. Okay, you can add the starting range, and from this address space, this will be, your IP addresses will be allocated. You can add the subnet mask here, like how many addresses you want. If you want like 256 addresses, generally we create subnets with this range /24. That means you'll get 256 IP addresses. If you need more IP addresses, you can select the subnet mask from here. If you just need a small subnet, you can just select 27, 28 or something like that. If you need more, you can come here, scroll down and select any lower subnet mask. Okay, once you have selected, you can see the subnet address range, and you will have the 256 addresses. That means you can create 256 resources inside that. Generally, we 5 to 6 addresses will be allocated. I mean, will be kept by Azure, and rest will be you can. I mean, rest resources, the rest of the IP addresses you can use and create the resources. If you want to include IPv6, you can include that as well. And here is the private subnet feature. If you want to create the private subnet, that is no default outbound access. All the outbound access from this subnet will be disabled. If you want to enable some of the outbound access, you will have to add it inside your network security group rules. Then only you will be able to enable the outbound connectivity from this subnet if you are creating private subnet. But this is just in preview, so I will not recommend to use this feature in production. Okay, you can do it for your development or test environment and you can test it, but not for the production. Okay, here in security you can add NAT gateway inside your subnet. We will discuss more about NAT gateway in different video. We already have discussed about security group and we'll discuss about route tables as well in some upcoming videos. So if you have some NAT gateway, you can include the NAT gateway. For NAT gateway, you can just see the definition. A network address translation gateway is recommended for outbound internet access from a subnet. Okay. For network security group, you can select the network security group using this NSG. You can create the inbound rules as well as outbound rules from your subnet. All subnets should use a network security group to filter network traffic. Basically, you can use the network security group to filter the traffic. I already have made a video on it. You can go and watch that. After that, if you have some route table to route your traffic to your on premises or somewhere else, you can add the route table as well inside this subnet. But we don't have route table as of now, so we will not include it. Now you can add the service endpoint policies to allow traffic to a specific Azure resources from your virtual network over service endpoint. So suppose you want to allow the traffic for some particular service endpoint like for key vault or service bus or maybe app service or something like that. You can select and add those service points here inside your subnet. You can delegate the subnet to some particular resource type. Like if I give you an example, like if you are creating the database or suppose application gateway, then you will have to delegate this subnet to that particular resource type only. So that if you have delegated this resource or this subnet to suppose app gateway or to container instances, then you will be able to create only container instances in that subnet. Okay, so suppose I have allocated this subnet to okay this container instances. Okay, then I will be able to create or deploy only this type of resource in my new subnet which I am created at this moment. This is for ACI, so we'll be able to create only this type of subnet. Some of the resource types requires delegation of subnets like container instances, application gateway. So you will have to enable the subnet delegation. After that, this is one of the important, you can say property here in subnets, network policy for private endpoints. If you are adding private endpoints in this subnet, you will have to do it something like this. Or even if you are creating private endpoints, Then you will have to select this here. Either you want to keep it disabled or network security group and route tables. If you keep it disabled, then you don't need to add the NSG rules for your private endpoints. Okay, to connect your virtual network or subnet privately. If you are selecting network security group, then only network security group is needed to allow the traffic. So suppose if you have created private endpoint for some of the resource or some of the past service in Azure, you can just add the particular energy rule or and outbound and inbound energy rule, and you will be able to connect to your resource in this particular subnet. If you are selecting route table as well, then you will have to add the route table as well to allow the traffic. But mostly, if you are following network security group policy, you can just keep the network security group as private network endpoint network policy. So whenever someone is creating private endpoint to reach your subnet privately, they will have to create both inbound as well as outbound rules. If you are keeping this disabled, then they just have to create the outbound rules and there is no need of inbound rules. Okay, so let's keep it the network security groups and add it. This will create our subnet, that is ACI-01. Okay, now you can see this ACI-01 is created and IP is this subnet range. So whenever you need to allow traffic from some subnet or to this subnet, you will have to use this IP range to add the network security group rules or something like that. Okay, we don't have IPv6 any IPs, and you can see the available IPs which we have is 251. Okay, if you notice it, we had create when we were creating the IP, our available IPs were 256, but now it is only 251 because Azure generally reserve 5 available IPs. That's why it is showing 251 here, and you can create only 251 resources inside this subnet. Since this is delegated to Microsoft Container instance, you can create only this type of resource inside this subnet. But if you see a VM subnet which I have created already, this is not delegated to any of the resource type. Okay, then in this subnet you can create multiple types of resources, suppose as virtual network or load balancer, etc. That I mean there is a condition like you that resource type should not require delegated subnet. Then only you'll be able to create the subnet in Azure or resource in this type of subnet. Okay, if you want to delete some particular subnet, you can click on three dot and you can delete it, or you can from manage users you can specify the permissions. Okay, so this is the first type of subnets you can create, and there is another type that is called gateway subnet. You can create one gateway subnet in a virtual network. Since I already have one, it is not giving me the option to create it. Let me delete this first, and you can now, then you will be able to get that option. This gateway subnet basically we create to uh, connect our virtual network with on premises or something like that. If I see once I have deleted the existing gateway subnet, I am getting the option to create the gateway subnet inside my virtual network. If you click on gateway subnet, you can select the purpose here, like for what purpose you want this subnet. Okay, these are some of the purpose. You can select the virtual network gateway so that you will be able to communicate with your virtual or your on-premises virtual network or on-premises network using the virtual network gateway and this subnet. Okay, so this is the reason generally we create the gateway subnet. Rest other things will be the same as the subnet. You can select the service endpoint and you can delegate it to some particular resource type. Let me add it, and this will add one subnet as well, that is gateway subnet. Okay, and if you see one of the subnets here, you can see there is one security group, that is energy-1 is attached, and since we don't have route tables and we didn't attach it, route table is empty. At the moment our traffic in this subnet will be going via this. So if you need to enable some rules or energy rules in this subnet, you will have to open this network security group and you will have to add the inbound security rules or outbound security rules from here. Okay, you can either allow some traffic or deny some traffic directly from creating the rules. Okay, if you go to subnets, you can see this ACI-01 subnet is already associated here. That's why this subnet is, this subnet will be able to use this network security group. Okay, so we have covered everything about subnet, how we can create the subnet, what is subnet, what is the purpose of creating the subnet, and different types of subnets like normal subnet and gateway subnet. Okay, that's it from this video. If you have any feedback or suggestions, please let me know in the comments. If you liked it, please like and subscribe my channel. Thanks for watching.